right, guys. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. So today we're going to talk about capital. We're going to talk about uh, privatized or infinite banking, and we have my mentor, Joe Pantozzi from Alpha Mega Wealth, um, that studied with Nelson Nash probably for 18, 20 years, Joe, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And directly and so what Joe and so anyway, so we're going to have a discussion about capital, business cycle theory, and whatever's on Joe's mind. A lot of times, I interview a lot of people, but this is what I do. Okay, I just talked to y'all about ways to make money outside of Wall Street, but this is the engine that drives the car. Controlling the banking function, capitalization, having money. And the number one problem that I see, Joe, is lack of access to capital because people don't save money and or control the money that flows through their life. So, Joe, welcome back because this is probably his fourth time on
Good.
the show
Good
to the
morning and
Practical Wealth
thank you.
Show.
Good morning and
so,
thank you.
so, and so I well, you give them a little background, and then we can kind of ease into our topic for today.
Sure. Um, as you said, I met Nelson Nash when he first came out with his book in 2001. And I was invited with a small group of people to San Clemente, California, come down to meet this gentleman who's going to teach us how to use our life insurance policies more efficiently. And I'm saying, wait a minute, I know what I'm doing. I have plenty of clients. I've been doing this 25 years. I kind of know my way around the block. I had no clue. I had no clue that there was another level. I had no clue how intricately banking and unfortunately Wall Street and government and insurance had kind of a sibling rivalry with each other.
Right,
In
right.
some instances, they work together. In some instances, they're diametrically opposed to each other. And here I am as a professional, as an advisor, as an insurance professional, all these years, showing people the what. Right? You should have this policy. Well, why? Well, because if you die, not
Right.
not if you die. And oh, by the way, you're going to build up a whole bunch of cash values which you could use later in life, and blah blah blah. And it's like owning a house versus renting a house, right? And here's the what. And you should have this product, and you should have this product, and this product. And we focused on the what, and then Simon Sinek expresses it so beautifully. What about the why? Why do I have to have capital? Why do I have to have insurance? Why should I plan for the future? I've got a paycheck. I got a good job. I've been there 20 years. Why should I worry about these things? Well, there's a bigger picture. And as I move forward in my career and serving clients, more of them as business owners,
Mm-hmm.
I come to realize that people don't give proper attention to the need for adequate capital,
Right.
right? Everybody knows that if you're going to open up a McDonald's franchise or a shoe store or a gas station or a car wash, you need capital. And in order to maintain any kind of a business, pay your payroll, pay your insurances, pay your taxes, do your advertising, on down the list, you're going to need capital and cash flow, right? And here's the thing, capital is vital to a business owner. And then somebody says, well, not my problem. I'm not a business owner. Oh, you're not a business owner? Who pays your paycheck? Well, I work for somebody. Oh, so your paycheck is dependent on a business owner's survival,
Right.
right? Well, no, not me. I work for government. Or no, not me. I work for a nonprofit. Okay, well, if you work for government, then your paycheck is contingent on the government's continuing to collect taxes from business owners.
Right.
And if you work for a nonprofit, then your paycheck is contingent on continuing donations and contributions from business
Business
owners,
owners.
right? So it's in everyone's best interest to pray and support and uphold business owners, because somebody said the business of America is business,
Right.
right?
That I think people forgot that, but yes.
Right.
So
So there's a necessity for capital, and what happens in the absence of adequate capital? Bankruptcy.
right.
And we can look up the statistics and say, wow, in after so many years, if you open up a restaurant, you have a 90% chance of failure after 5 years. Why is that? Because people are stealing the dinner rolls out the back door? No, because you weren't adequately capitalized. So, um, and it applies to an individual's family, right?
Right.
If my family isn't capitalized, we're not going to have a happy family because we don't have enough money to take a vacation once a year.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue you should I always tell people you should run your household is a business. So people talk about your personal economy. Economy is the root word of economy or economics is I always pronounce it wrong, but it's economos, which means household manager, right? And so so it's not this science that you all these people get PhDs in college. It's just, you have you can't control and you can't control the we tell our clients, look, you can't control the economy at large, but you can control your personal economy, which is your production and consumption of your finite amount of resources that flow through your household. And so you have to manage that, right? And control money that and keep more. I always tell I was rereading The Richest Man in Babylon, right? And a quote from I'm gonna butcher it says, if you have not managed more than a bare existence since we were youths, it's because you either don't know the laws that govern the acquisition of money or capital. Capital means money. Just for y'all don't know, we're talking when we say capital, and or else you do not observe them. Okay. And it
Mhm.
starts with paying yourself first. Part of all you earn is yours to keep and spend less than you make. Like that's the foundation. Like if you can't do that, you can't do nothing else we talking about here today. Okay, because you can't control Parkinson's law. You're spendthrift and you can't control the money and you're not mastering your money. And that's really key. So
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a perfect foundation. And what do we as advisors confront every single day? Well, my job is to get in front of people and help them, serve them,
right,
increase their capital, increase their financial health, right? Increase financial literacy. And the biggest portion of that is getting people to understand the need for capital and the place that it holds in that whole financial plan. And so
right,
what do we fight against? Well, we're fighting against human nature, right? We're fighting against Parkinson's law. People are going to continue to spend more than they make, right? And they don't give adequate attention to all the different reasons why they might need capital. And so, the idea of a savings account or an emergency account is kind of ridiculous when you think about it, because we give lip service to the idea of an emergency account. Well, you should have 3 to 6 months expenses in an account. Who has that? And if you have it, is that enough? Well, what if I want to take my wife on a in my case, a 35-year anniversary trip
mm-hmm,
to Europe? That's going to be a couple of weeks. What am I going to do? Use my emergency savings for that? No, that's not an emergency. That's vacation, and that's something you could plan for, and you knew it was coming.
right,
Okay,
right,
it wasn't unexpected. Well, what if then you have the unexpected, a medical bill that's not fully covered by insurance. We've had that in our family, right? Or a bad decision, a bad business decision, a bad hire
right.
that cost me six figures. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. A
Mm,
bad call, or the market does such and such, right? Um, and so the thing that we lean on, whether we realize it or not, whether we admit it or not, the thing that we lean on is that, well, I could always get a loan. And really, isn't that part of the business cycle? Somebody sets up a business, and the first thing that they want to do is set up a line of credit.
right,
They get a small business administration loan, which is nowadays around 9.5%, right? You've got to go through an act of Congress and 85 pounds of paper, and you have to prove that you don't need the money in order to get it, right? But
Right.
there's always going to be lenders out there that are willing to lend you money, and the more desperate you are, the steeper the cost, right? So you've got high fees, you have points, you have credit scores and applications and so forth. Um, if you if you get a lender who's going to lend to you, they may want to put a lien on your equipment, right? A UCC lien.
Right. Yep.
You're probably going to have um, absolutely an interest cost of some kind, but you're also probably going to have a principal repayment. So you have an amortized loan, which is a bigger number than you were expecting. And now
Right.
all of a sudden you have a payment that's probably as big as one of your employees' payrolls.
Right.
So you have an extra employee there you're paying who doesn't work for you, who works kind of against you. Um, anyway, I'll let you jump in. I'll take a breath.
Yeah, so so when we look at that, because the whole essence of, see, a lot of people, there's so much missed half truths or misconceptions about IBC. Like when they'll get, you can't do this in a 30-second clip on TikTok or Instagram, right? And they talk about all this nonsense, right? And really, if you look at the or using the wrong product, Index Universal Life, which we'll do a whole other talk on that. But they don't, like, I tell people, look, if you're talking to somebody, they don't literally beat you over the head with the book in the first. I'm holding up the book for y'all to listen to this. My book, which is, and I got this from seeing your book, right? Which I said, all right, my book is falling apart. I had to get it laminated. I got the spiral rings on it. I added
Nice.
extra pages to make it a journal, and then I find all the old school IBCers. This is how their book looks, right? I got an autograph by Nelson, and
Amen.
this is a work, our study, what is it called, syllabus, and
Yep.
our study course of learning, because banking is a process. And so one of the things that, as we talk about the business cycle, in this, for business owners, of controlling, because banking, the process is different from life insurance, the product. And a
Mhm.
lot of people conflate those two, right?
Mhm.
And so I really work hard at separating that and getting people to understand, the need for capital and to be in control of your money, because, excuse the expression, shit happens, right? And you need access to capital. Okay.
Stuff happens. That's right.
Right. So I got to curse, Joe, to get their attention. But
Oh, you got.
don't be like me.
It's
So
hard to replace that word in the Bible. I tell you, it's hard to replace some vulgarities at times just to get
right.
people's attention.
Or in Scotland, they say shite. So maybe I'll do it that way, right? So
But
yeah,
this is a big issue. Maybe the biggest issue that I face in dealing with clients is getting them to understand that they need to have way more capital than they've ever thought about. Okay, you need to have maybe millions of dollars to retire on. You're not going to retire on $300,000 in your IRA or your
right.
401k or your Roth, right? Well, yeah, but um, I'm going to have Social Security, right? Well, yes, of course you are. And Social Security is designed to cover about
That's
15%.
$1,500 a month. Okay, what are
Yeah,
you gonna do with the rest? Yeah,
but
so
but if
uh,
you were to think about all the different reasons why you'd need capital, right? I mean, I want to make gifts. I want to make gifts throughout the year, and I do, to my family, to non-family, to others, to charities, right? To my church is separate than gifts outside. I want to build a community. I mean, there's people I know within a few miles of my voice here that don't have adequate food, right? So it's not just about me building my kingdom. For me, it's about having enough for me and enough to share, right? And people don't, right? People don't plan to fail; they fail to plan, right? They're so excited about this new business that they're opening up. They're saying, "I'm going to have so much cash flow coming in that capital is not even going to be an issue."
mm-hmm,
Well,
mm-hmm,
yeah, till COVID happened,
right.
right? And then you don't have customers walking in your door. Um, it's about having a plan, and the word plan is so it's overrated, it's underrated, it's misunderstood, right? Because you can plan yourself into a rut, right? The plan
Mhm.
plan probably has to have more flexibility and creativity in it than it has, a stable pieces like a little, wooden soldier. Um, but people are excited about the future. Well, I could always get lenders to lend to me because I have a going concern. Yeah, but at some point, you're going to have to pay them back. At some point, you're going to have to buy them out if they bought into your business and they gave you money in exchange for a share of your business. Right. So, um, how do you avoid that? Well, understanding that your capital doesn't have to sit in some static account like like a bag of money under your bed, like cash in a safe,
Mhm.
like existing in, well, gee, I believe in gold and silver. Yeah, but at some point you need to translate some of that gold and silver into dollars to pay your power bill.
Right.
So at some point, you're going to need to exchange your stores of value into dollars in order to pay ongoing living expenses, overhead expenses, rents, payrolls, extra things that come up that you weren't anticipating. And that number is always going to be way bigger than you ever expected it to be. And so, go ahead.
No, I was thinking, so I want to give them, so two things. I want to talk about, sometimes I have trouble articulating this. So I'm looking at the contents of the book. And so I want to just give you a heads up. I want to talk about the problem. What is the problem? So it's, going back to Simon Sinek, start with why. It's why, then how, then what. So what is a product, right? But you've got to start with why. So you read Nelson's book, how it got started. There was a problem. So what's the problem that businesses, that consumers are facing, that this process solves for them? And then maybe talk about some of the, because you work a lot with business owners and real estate investors, but I know a lot of business owners, of how you see this helping them and kind of steps they can begin to take control of the banking function in their life
Sure.
practically.
Sure. So for one thing, we kind of go through life a little bit complacent, and we kind of assume that the entities, the institutions that are out there for our good,
Right.
right? So I grew up with my big brother uh, starting out as a teller at a bank when he was 18 years old, and I every once in a while my mom would take me to the bank. We would walk in that bank, and it was this giant edifice. It looked like a Greek building, stone and marble and steel and glass. When you walked in there, there was a security officer, and you had to treat it like it was a library or a church because you couldn't raise your voice, right? Because
Right.
they set up this environment that it's almost a holy place.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the bank is there to help us because the bank is there for our good. And they're going to hold on to our money and keep it safe and pay us an interest rate and so forth and so on. And of course, we come to find out bank is a bank is a for-profit institution.
Right.
And their goal in life is to get our money
Right.
and to keep it with them and to pay us a paltry amount of interest while they make the lion's share of the interest. And so, number one, um, be careful who you trust,
Right.
right? I mean, you're going to trust Wall Street, God bless them. You can trust government that doesn't know how to manage a budget, that wouldn't know um, a budget cut if it stared them in the face,
Right.
right? You're going to trust banks. And now I'm listening. I watched some of the testimony on the Federal Reserve Bank managers who have kind of admitted that, gee, if a bank becomes a certain size, if it gets to a certain critical mass, that bank gets to a point where it's too big to fail. And that's a good place to be if you're a bank. Gee, we get to $500 billion. We almost can't do any wrong because the government will bail us out, not just with FDIC, but with its own money, which is our money, it's tax money, right?
Right.
So okay, so where I'm getting to is people are starting to understand the reason I want to control my own future and create literacy for financing my kids is because of freedom. One word, freedom.
Right. Freedom.
I want to have I want to have freedom to act. I don't want to be told where I have to keep my money, where I have to send my money. I don't want to be told that this organization, this institution is going to manage my money for me and they'll tell me what's best for me as I go forward in my life. Really? That's not the country I grew up in. That's not why we live here.
Right.
No, we live here because we get to fall on our face and bloody our nose by ourselves and not have somebody else keeping, a noose around our neck or a leash around our neck and directing us where we should walk and where we should act and how we should conduct our business. No, let me make my own mistakes. And that means I have to control my own capital.
Right. And see, so financial literacy is accounting, the ability to read numbers and see. So if you're hearing this, you've got to want control. You know, I was watching, what's my favorite football movie is The Replacements, right? With Keanu Reeves, and it says, winners always want the ball. Okay. And I want the ball. They said, well, he didn't say most winners do. And so you gotta want the ball. So you can't abdicate your responsibility of money because you have to control your personal economy. And then we've been trained that we're not smart enough to manage our personal economy. Our money is too complicated. And so basically, in so many words, most marketing from the Wall Streets and the financial world is give your money to us. And we're kind of saying, all right, you need institutions, but you need to control it first and then decide how to allocate it. And that's just the paradigm shift that
Yep.
that I think we're trying to get across. Not so much selling insurance, but the paradigm shift of controlling your money. And then we use properly structured dividend paying whole life to facilitate a cash flow management system of am I saying that right? See, I always say when I always call Joe and say, look, here's what I'm thinking. Am I saying this correctly? So
I think if your heart is pure, and kind of I wake up every day and say, God, let me say the right thing, let me do the right thing, let me serve people, let me put them first.
Yeah.
Right. If I was the customer, what would I want done for me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things I want done for me is I want to know that the financial partner that I'm working with that has the big bucks, I want to know that they have my interest at heart to a large extent. And that's why, from a philosophical standpoint, I decided long ago in my career on day one that I wanted to work with a mutual company, right? A mutual company that does not have a profit motive outside of giving me a share of profits. So the companies we work with do not own stock, do not issue stock, I should say.
Right.
We can't buy stock in that company. The only way you can have a piece of that company is by owning a policy, right, or by owning a product that company sells. It might be a life insurance policy, it might be a disability policy, it might be an annuity, right? But they only exist to serve the policy holders, and they have a track record of success that goes well over 120 years. All the companies now that we work with were founded in the late 1800s. Late 1800s. And I just mentioned this to a client of mine the other day. I said, you'd have to go back into the history books to find this out and verify this, but there is literally not one policyholder in the United States that ever lost money on a whole life policy because of actions of the company. And you could destroy anything, right? You could ruin anything. You could misuse anything or abuse it or use it improperly, right?
Right.
But the policies that we utilize, and oh, by the way, the policies that the richest people on the planet own, the policies that banks own, and the policies that every Fortune 500 companies own, they're all policies that don't fail.
Right.
Period. Right. Well, banks have FDIC. 500 banks have failed in this century, this 23-year century.
Right.
500 plus banks have failed. And FDIC only covered maybe 10% of those failures. Guess who covered the other 90%?
Taxpayer.
Taxpayers.
Yep.
Not voluntarily,
Right. Right.
right? So we decided I want to work with a mutual company. I own a couple of dozen policies across 4 different mutual companies. I own a piece of those companies, and those companies are accountable and responsible to me for how they're performing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they have an obligation to be diligent, to manage their finances, to not burn through the money, to not make speculative or volatile investments. Those companies don't put money on Wall Street. And I'm not saying that Wall Street's a terrible thing. I'm talking about 2 different things. We're talking about safe money here.
Right.
We're talking about money that I don't want to lose. I don't want to go into my account next month and say, oh, gee, my account's only down 8%. Well, 8% of a 7-figure account or an 8-figure account is a big number. No,
Right.
no, no. I don't want that. I want stable growth over my lifetime. And I'll just throw this in, please. Um, People are always making comparisons. Well, I'd rather buy real estate than life insurance. I'd rather buy a money market than life insurance. I'd rather buy a Class A mutual fund than life insurance. I'd rather run a business. It's not. First of all, we're not in competition with
Right.
how you make your money. We're putting a steel belted safety net under how you make your money. Number one. Number two, the whole life policy, as Curtis said, properly structured, is something that has no equal. There is no other product you could put next to it and say, okay, let's compare apples to apples. There are no apples,
Right.
right? This is a pomegranate made of gold. There is no other product on the planet that will give you a guaranteed rate of increase for as long as you own the product. I mean, you mean you'll give me a guarantee for life that it'll never go down and always go up? Yeah. Well, what about when I borrow money? Can't they raise my rates? No. So how much can I borrow? As much as you have in there. And
Yep.
and how much are you going to charge me? You're going to start charging me 10% when rates go? Nope. Your policy you buy this year, the rate's 4%. 4% before tax deduction. 4. What if I borrow 20 years from now? 4. What about a fee? Points. Um, reason qualifying. FICO. No. Fill out a form. Say, here you go. One one signature on one piece of paper. Right? And it's not this. A few
Right.
years ago, this is about an inch and a half thick. A few years ago, I refinanced the house in Las Vegas to get a better rate. And it took several months. And I had to fill out and sign, have notarized, had a notary in my house, about 110 pieces of paper, 110 signatures. Okay. It had to prove why, prove FICO score, prove ability to repay. Okay. Life insurance policy loan. I'd like a loan against my money. I don't want my money to lose any money. I want my money to continue earning while you charge me less, in effect, than I'm earning. I'm going to
Right.
make money by taking a loan against my life insurance and put it into my business machine where I make my real wealth. I mean, if people understood how life insurance really works and how good it really is when it's properly structured and properly managed, Nelson says people would buy that at vending machines.
And that's what we're trying to do. You gotta, it's work to get you all to get this. I have people that, and Joe, I go through their budgets and I've shown them, all right, you can do this, and I tell people, look, you have to. Adam Smith said, I told this to somebody yesterday. I said, listen, you have to capitalize. It means you got to put money away. And it says a bank. Now, when we say banking, just for the compliance people out here, we're not talking about a bank. Banking means creating a pool of capital that you control that can move at cost to meet some need you have. So that's what we're talking about as a concept. All right, just to be clear, right? But what happens is, Andrew Smith says a bank can't make a loan unless it first has a deposit, right? So I got the concept from you all that when we first started working together, that you want to see Nelson says everybody needs two businesses: the ones that makes their money and the banking business as your second business. And you taught me to look at it as a franchise, that you're building a second business to finance the needs of personal and business needs of the first, and kind of recapturing the profits you're giving away to third party capital. But I just said it, but you say it better or say it differently so I can get people to understand what we're trying to do.
No, but you said it exactly. And Nelson repeated what Adam Smith said. A bank cannot make a loan unless it first has a deposit. And it's amazing that 3 out of 4 business owners don't understand that. MBAs don't understand that. CPAs don't understand that. CFOs don't understand that. And how is that money being earned or made or manufactured or leveraged? Well, there are some things that banks do that we absolutely want to imitate.
Right.
And if the general public understood and saw the evidence, which we can show you in black and white, and saw that banks own billions and billions of dollars of life insurance, and start to understand why, then you would say, well, I don't really need a commercial bank as a middleman to hold my money. Why wouldn't I go direct to a representative of the insurance company, buy a policy, and start to do some of the same things, some of the things that we believe are good for people, good for the economy, right? Good for the future of our country. We don't believe that fractional reserve banking is good for our economy. We don't believe that that printing money is good for our economy. Nobody believes that. They believe it's an evil necessity. And then we can get into another time, the idea of fractionalizing, leveraging your assets. And
Mm-hmm.
why do banks fail? Because they don't have as many assets as they have liabilities.
Right.
Right? I mean, the whole idea of having a net worth is owning more than you owe. Right. Um, so yeah, do the things that banks do in terms of creating velocity with your money. Don't keep it sitting.
Right.
But don't look to make risky bets with your seed money, with the money you can't afford to lose. You want to make intelligent, reasoned, educated investments in the market. That's not the subject we're talking about today.
Right.
I remind my clients, the biggest risk that you take is putting that key in that door of your business every morning. There's your volatile stock. You know, you're taking a risk every single day. All the risk is on you. If your name's on the front of the check, you've got all the risk. If your name's in the back of the check, you have no risk.
Right.
That company folds, you go down the street, get another job. It's that simple. So we love and revere our business owners because they take risk every single day. And our calling in life is to help them get the information, the education, the resource, the knowledge, right? And it's not just there in today's newspaper to pick up in 30 minutes, right? We've been studying this stuff now for decades and decades to help our clients understand the basics, master the basics, and execute the basics.
Right.
And you can become a millionaire by executing the basics, right? And keeping the main thing the main thing.
I like that. I think, well, I'm gonna, for this lesson, because as we're talking, I'm going to look at the book going, all right, we should do this like every other week. And just because it's a like I always tell people will do an hour workshop on this stuff, and I sat through, you probably did way more than me, but I sat through Nelson's talk twice, and every time I learned like 4 new things I didn't understand that became clear. And he used to do a 2-day, 10-hour workshop on this stuff on an 85-page book, right? And so these all these new jacks, they think they got it, or I got a better way. And he studied Austrian economics for like 60 years. Okay. So most people don't even understand what that means, because there's a whole thought process that birthed him seeing this. It was already there, but he thought differently, so he was able to look at it differently. And so, if you begin to learn to take control of your money as a business owner, as a household,
Mm.
and not be afraid to capitalize. See, because I have people say, well, I got this money over here. If I need it, you can get it. It's liquid. You can move some of it over here. So you might be able to go to the bank and pull all out the next day, but you can get it in 3. Okay, you don't have no emergency that you or opportunity that if you can't tie up, and if you can get your money in less than a week and not have to what I call liquidate it
Hmm.
to do it. See, so if you're the bank, everything you do becomes more profitable, right? And it's like, as Nelson would say, flying a plane with a perpetual tailwind. Okay. And so that's kind of what, as we go through this series, what we're going to talk about. So Joe, take us home and give us a few words of wisdom as we close. But I think this is hopefully, if y'all are listening and going through the book, you're kind of getting philosophically what we're trying to get
Hmm.
across. We weren't very
Hmm.
tactical today, but I think it's the mindset.
So yeah, thanks for that. I always thought it was a little bit fundamental or elementary when Nelson would include the human problems,
Yeah.
right? And then the further down the road I go, the more I talk about Parkinson's law. I probably talk about Parkinson's law more than I talk about use it or lose it, or
Hmm.
Willie Sutton, or the golden rule, right? Um, but Nelson said it's all about the way you think.
Right.
It's all about the way you think. And if people understood what there is that's fundamental about building wealth, they would be more interested in doing it, because most people are in fear, right?
Hmm.
Most people are in a scarcity mindset. And this is not, think yourself rich. No, you're not thinking yourself rich. You're thinking yourself into wealthy habits,
Right.
right? I don't have to believe that I deserve a Maserati in my driveway if I don't have Maserati income and cash flow and net worth.
Right.
It's not, Maserati is not a good example because there are way better cars than that, right? But it's not about someone. It's not what about somebody else sees in my driveway. It's about me getting my kids to my soccer game safely and back home safely,
Right.
and
Right.
enjoying the ride, right? It's about the way you think. If people understood how many different buckets of safe money you should have for all the things you want in life, if we put it all together, then you'll come around to our way of thinking, Nelson's way of thinking. And Nelson said, he said, I didn't invent the infinite banking concept. I discovered it.
Right.
Right. And it's called the concept because it exists right here. It's about the way you think. It's not about setting up a corporation or brick and mortar. It's about managing yourself as if you were a bank. It's a banking system.
Right.
And the systems can exist in our mind, and then we can execute them on paper and in our lives for our families.
That's it. So, folks, it's, as Nelson would say, is all the way you think. It's all the way you think. It's all the way you think. So rethink your thinking. Okay. So I'm going to end with that for today's show, guys. This is, if you like this, folks, share this with somebody that's hearing this, and that y'all are researching this. This is what we do at Practical Wealth and Alpha Mega, is we teach people how money works, how to control the banking function in their life, because our goal is to help you become and remain financially free. Okay, that is the why.
Good
You
word.
know, that's how we um how do you judge if you're successful? Not by the revenue that we generate, because money is a result of creating value in the marketplace. So if we do what's right and we serve people, the money will follow us because we're solving problems, right? And that's what we're trying to do. So the problem, you don't control your money. Okay, that's the problem. That before the first many problems that we solve that we're going to get into as we go down the line, because there's a lot of problems that we have the ability to help people with. They're going to identify them and then kind of systematically break them down for you. So guys, I want you to go out there and go back, listen to this again with some notes and hear it. I had somebody go through the book, and I've got people going through the book through the third time, and they're like, wow, I just got that. Yeah. I said, yeah, Nelson says the more you see, the more you see you didn't see. Right. And so that's the key. And you've got to do it. You've got to practice. It's being your own banker. Right. It's not waiting for Joe and Curtis to tell you what to do. We're the guides, but it's your money at the end of the day. So let me leave you with what Nelson says. Don't be afraid to capitalize. Right. Premium is the solution, not the problem. Right. Don't steal the no, what is it? Don't be afraid to capitalize. Think long range. That's the number one problem, Joe. Right. Don't steal the peas. Don't be afraid to capitalize and rethink your thinking. There's a fifth one that he added. I don't remember what that one is.
He said, "Don't do business with banks."
Don't do business with banks, right? And that's a little bit harder, but that's all right. You can work toward that, because it's going to take about 20, 25 years to do
Yeah.
that. Hence the think long range,
Banks
right?
have a
So
role. They have a role.
yeah,
But we are the master, and the banks work for us. Let's keep things in
right.
perspective.
You've got to be the master of your money, and that's our whole message: be the master of your money, and take control. So, guys, with that, we're going to end today. Listen, leave us a review, and go out there and make it a fantastic day. We're out. Thanks, Joe.